Hey. Welcome back, everybody. I know you just saw me a couple hours ago, but I can't help it. There's so much Black excellence out here. Yes. Welcome back to the Digital Green Book Podcast. As you know, I am Alana. I go by Afro Butterfly, and my main mission here is to put as many brilliant, beautiful, talented Black people in front of you. We do a whole host of things. We are not a monolith, and there's a lot of talent really bubbling and undercurrenting in our community right now. As y'all know, I'm a retired ICU nurse who has stumbled her way into the tech space, and I love everything from Web 2 bridging into Web 3. I am so honored today to have CK with me. CK has done a whole host of things inside of the Web 2 and Web 3 space, and we're going to have a really interesting conversation today about what Convex Labs does and how you can possibly get involved because he has two open positions he's looking to get filled. So thank you, thank you,
Three, I
thank
think.
you, CK. Three. Uh-oh. Y'all looking for work. Y'all looking for work.
We're hiring. So definitely check it out.
That's something Black people love to hear. We're hiring.
Oh, for sure.
So I really just want to get into who you are as a person and how you found yourself inside of the tech space. Was that something that you always wanted to get into?
Nah, it's actually funny story. So I spent about 8 years in the oil and gas and energy space. So first job out of undergrad was working for ExxonMobil doing like corrosion engineering. Then I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And no offense to anybody in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but I had to get out of there. It was not where you want to be in your 20s. So decided to come out to California, found a job out here at a utility company. And kind of just crazy, in 2017, my younger brother got into crypto. Just his neighbors were like putting him on, and they're like, this is back in like when everything was going up. And he just like put me on. And at first I told him, get his money out. It's a scam, bro. This does not sound right. And then ultimately he clearly convinced me to take a look. The prices also convinced me to take a look. So hopped in just to like, feel it out, see what's going on. And then of course, now that I had some skin in the game, decided, okay, I should actually learn what this crypto stuff is. And that just set me down the rabbit hole of just like learning so much about the potential of the technology. And these are even early days, and there's a lot of really cool ideas that people were espousing that a lot of them have come to fruition, some of them haven't, but it was just really cool to just kind of jump into that. And I found myself doing that on the side at work. I'd be doing my main job and then on the side, and I put all my coworkers onto crypto. And then funny enough, I found out that the company I was at was actually exploring blockchain and how that could apply to the future of the energy grid. So I stumbled my way into talking with the hiring manager. She helped me get onto the team. So I did that for about a couple of years. So prior to my current job, it was probably my favorite job that I've had. It's a really dope experience being able to do what you were doing in your free time, like kind of hiding it at work, be able to do it full time and learn about that full time, talk to people at these companies and just like ideate. And I love the space of being able to just kind of ideate and take amorphous ideas and turn them into something. So this is like a ripe space for that right now because we're figuring out so much.
Yes, it is. And I really think, like, as I get to know more people inside of this space, your trajectory sounds very similar. We all come from like different backgrounds, so to speak. Some of us may have more tech heavy backgrounds. I know I didn't. I came from nursing. But I dealt with a lot of tech in nursing, especially because of the background I was in was ICU. So we literally are the intersection between technology and the human body. So now watching that come online to the Web3 space has been somewhat fascinating. But I think that's so dope that you're like, my side hustle is now my main hustle. That's a beautiful place to be.
It's a
Really.
cool unlock for sure. So any of y'all out there who are like doing this on the side, there's opportunities to step in a real way. And if you're working on something that you actually would have spent your free time working on, it's a game changer. It's so much different than like going in and doing whatever the boss had for you for the day that was completely outside of your interest.
That part. That part. So, and I think that's if I had to like start off giving one piece of advice to anyone, if you have something that you're doing in your free time outside of what you do for your bread and butter, and your bread and butter isn't necessarily inspiring you, know that there is a job in the thing that you like to do. And especially now in the Web3 space, since we're at the ground level, the infancy level of this space, 9 times out of 10, there's a role for you. You just have to figure out what that nomenclature, what those words are that translate. Like I really
Yeah.
love doing Scrum, and it just turns out I'm like I love being organized and scientific about things. So Scrum was a perfect fit for me. So I love doing that on the side, especially around healthcare and technology. So people who are interested in Scrum, I have a few interviews that I've done with a few Scrum masters inside of this field. So go back and check those out.
Yeah,
But
I think one
okay.
more thing there is
Mhm.
one really interesting thing is like I feel like a lot of people get scared because like, I don't have the expertise. I don't have there's so many people who have more expertise than me. But like I remember when I first hopped into that role, like I knew I was learning a lot. But you like
Mhm.
join a lot of these meetings with other companies, you're expecting these people to just blow you away, and like you realize that okay, I know something. I'm talking to them, like the conversation's flowing. Like okay, I said something he didn't even know, or she didn't even know, and vice versa. And you kind of get into these rooms, and you realize that it's less intimidating. Now there are some super smart people in all these spaces that will completely blow you away, and you probably won't be able to keep up. And for me, like some of my teammates are like that. So like sitting in the room, I'm just actively learning so much. So even just the open mindset to want to learn, to put yourself in those positions, and understand that you're not going to know everything day one, but there's whatever you want to learn, there's sources out there and resources out there for you to go and figure it out. So it's really up to you to be able to just make it happen. There's a lot of opportunity out there.
And I know sometimes that may seem broad or like umbrella. So something I try to do in my free time is aggregate some of those resources. I'll be doing a couple of panel series coming up on what are a lot of the free or low cost resources that you can look into if you're looking to onboard into the Web3 space. Oftentimes, because we're in that gray area between Web 2, which is everything that you know is the internet as we use it now,
Mm-hmm.
apps on your phone, gaming systems as you know them now, and Web3, we are already using a lot of Web3 protocols and people aren't aware. Like the whole concept of Internet of Things. So,
Yeah.
literally tying the real world map, like your GPS, if you've ever used Waze, if you've ever used Google Maps, tying those concepts into devices and being able to track items. If you ever lost your iPhone and you tracked it and found it, that's Web3 technology right there. So we're already using a lot of these technologies now. It's just putting a face to the name and helping those systems escalate and ramp up.
Yeah.
So getting back to Convex Labs, touch on that a little bit. What does Convex Labs do exactly?
Yeah, so Convex is actually a company started by a bunch of us who were just at Stanford. So I graduated in June with my MBA.
Mhm.
We were all leaders of the Stanford Blockchain Club, and it was just a group of people who realized that we all were really passionate about the space, and not just passionate about being successful, but passionate about having an impact in the space. And so we just kind of figured out that we had a lot of really complementary skill sets, and one of the main ones around that being like blockchain forensics, quant trading, product management, venture capital,
Mm.
organizational design. And so with all that, we're just like, okay, there's something here. And so at a high level, we're basically looking to be kind of a venture studio in the long run where we help incubate a bunch of projects. But for right now, we're starting with some of our own projects, and we have a strong base of like blockchain forensics expertise, data analytics, and taking that to be able to really drive some insight. So some of the things that we do is with a heavy emphasis on trust and safety. So right now we are working on our first set of tools. It's currently called Honest Protocol. And the first thing that we're releasing is an NFT theft detection system. So everything from historical and then real-time alerts on if we believe an NFT might be stolen to helping people with evidence and being able to track things. I did not mean to share my screen if that was.
Nope, that's me.
Oh, that's you. Cool. It's funny. It's on my other screen. So I was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. So yeah, historically, we've done a bunch of really cool stuff around like auditing NFT projects. And we were trying to figure out how to make that scale as opposed to doing these one-off audits, and then realize that we wanted to be able to do something that was at a much broader level. So with like the NFT theft detection system, that should help a lot of people. Right now, a lot of the marketplaces are mandating people to have to basically submit a police report, but that's not an easy thing to do if you don't understand what happened. You can go
Hmm.
submit the police report, but a lot of people don't really understand how to like make sense of like what actually happened to them. So that's what we spend a lot of our time focused on. And then also we do a lot of things around like asset recovery. So we're doing like some consulting for some cases involved some large thefts of Bitcoin and whatnot. So what we're really building out is a really, really impressive intelligence system. It's a lot of the activity happening on chain, and trying to find ways to where we can utilize that to help the space.
The cool thing about that for me is that's sort of where I got my start a little bit, but very unofficially. So I completely understand the need for what you're doing. As I began learning about this space, um, at the time I was traveling and teaching with my mentor, and we would teach like 200, 500 people at a time just about the basics of crypto, the basics of blockchain, how to onboard into this space. And of course, the thing that I was noticing the most is that there's this interesting intersection between people having excitement to get involved with crypto, excitement to interact with blockchain, but they don't always take the proper steps to secure
Mm-hmm.
things.
Yep.
So they might lose a seed phrase, they might screenshot their recovery phrase, or they might lose their Ethereum and they're like, where did I put it? Can I find it? Is it going forever? So I spend a lot of time helping people retrieve
Yeah.
crypto or crack back into wallets if possible. Because sometimes if you lose your recovery phrase and you forgot your password, unfortunately, I can't help
Yeah.
you. But
And
now
it's an interesting paradigm shift, because like a lot of the ethos of crypto is like this decentralized, trustless environment where you don't have to trust any centralized third parties. And as soon as you lose your money, you're like, somebody give me my money back. But that is part of the process that we're in. And I think what you're doing is incredible. So we all talk about this idea of mass adoption. But I know if my first interaction with the space, even after hearing all the horror stories that are out there, my first interaction was me getting scammed. I'm done. Web 2 was working just great for me. So for us to get to mass adoption in the way that everybody in the space talks about, we really need to figure out, how do we protect people? Unfortunately, like, we're human. I have been in the space for 5 years. I'm working with some of the smartest people in the space, and I'm still susceptible to some of this stuff if I'm not meticulous with it. So anybody who's just joining the space, like, is just prime for people getting hacked and getting scammed. So we are currently working on it. And the cool thing is there's a lot of different companies who are working on different ways and different approaches for how to approach this problem at scale. I think like exactly what you're doing is we need so much more of that. So for when people are onboarding, like, what are just the basics on how you should protect yourself? And even to a point that you made before on just like where was I going with that? On resources. There's so many. Even when people ask me like, where do I start? It's hard for me to answer that question because there's just so many different things out there. And so for folks in the space who are being able to aggregate that, really point people in the right direction and walking them through what are the things I need to do to make sure that I'm understanding the space and then using it properly, I think that's huge. So shout out to that.
Thank you. And shout out to you because like yourself, even though I would consider myself like maybe more intermediate to advanced in this space, we're still susceptible to things at times, but innovation doesn't come without the opportunity for loss. And while I've had far more success in this space than loss, I do want to highlight that for people. Like, we're going from trusting the government and the man with all of our money and taking that personal initiative and that ownership over that. So with ownership comes responsibility. That means learning new habits, learning new ways to keep yourself safe. So I really rock with what you're doing. That's amazing. So let's touch a little bit on some of the open roles that you have. Like, if someone wanted to team up with you or work for you, what skills are you looking for?
Yeah, so we have, I think, 3 open positions. Let me actually grab the link. So we have a full stack developer. I guess, yeah, there's 4 open roles in there, but we're hiring 3 of them. So we're hiring a full stack developer. And so with that, we're looking for somebody who, of course, has front end, back end experience, is a go getter, is a self motivated self starter. We have an incredible team. I'm blessed to be working with some of the smartest people I've worked with. And not just smart, but we all take ownership. And even like a lot of the new hires we brought on, it's kind of cool. There's one guy from our community that we brought on who was just actively contributing to the community. We brought him in, we put him in a part-time role. He crushed that, and we brought him on full-time. And he was anonymous. I finally saw his face for the first time last week. It was a cool reveal. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And so we have the full stack developer. We have blockchain researcher and quant developer. So both of these, we do a lot of in-depth research. Again, we do a lot of around blockchain forensics. So if you have any experience there, data analytics, machine learning, those are skill sets we're looking for. Quant trading, that's also a skill set we're looking for. So these are somewhat a little bit more technical. The full stack is full stack, but the researcher and the quant developer are a little bit more technical. But if you feel like you're the right fit, we would love to interview you.
That's what's up. Well, I have a lot of founders in my typical audience base, so hopefully someone reaches out to you.
Okay, love it.
So now talking about where you see safety and trust going as it intersects with centralization, because when you've been through a few crypto cycles now, if you're talking about 2016 2017,
Yep.
so watching cryptos come and go, and then watching the ones with better tokenomics, or the ones that have better robust bones to them, those have survived the test of time, and some of those will come and go as well. But as we gear up to go into another bull run, because this technology is going to keep adapting, what are some things that you're noticing is missing? You touched a bit on NFT theft, and we know, I want you to go into the vulnerability of that because it's specifically around the URL associated with the image of the NFT. But what are some things that you're noticing as we're talking about centralization? So the government sort of wanting to regulate this space, but us also being autonomous in this space as it concerns to safety.
Yeah, I think we talked about it a little bit before. It's that onboarding piece, and how do we get people to understand and really understand what they're dealing with. Like you talk about DeFi, it's a really new topic, and a lot of people have been really successful in like utilizing DeFi platforms, staking, yield farming, and whatnot. But a lot of people haven't been successful in that, and part of that is one, the knowledge. There is a knowledge gap a lot of time in the space. So just in general, as people are using these platforms, I think education is a big one. How do you use it? How do you know for sure that what you're trying to do is what you're doing? And I feel like I even do this. I'll click my MetaMask, I click accept, and I'm like, I really hope that's what it was doing what I thought it was going to do. So I think one big thing in the space in general, and just for folks who are listening, I think one of the big things for all teams to be thinking about, and then for folks who are like potentially looking for roles, like user experience and user UI UX is going to be critical, because again, a lot of times we're using these platforms, and I'll sometimes hop onto a new platform and I'm confused as to what's going on. And if we're building stuff in ways that like the folks who've been in the trenches for years are like, I don't know what's happening, there's clearly a gap there in like how you're communicating your message and how you're enabling it for people to utilize it. So I think that's going to be a big one. You touched on like NFTs, and one of the interesting things, like the first article we released was an article called "A Guide to Effectively Cheating NFT Launches." And the interesting piece there is that there's a lot of NFT collections, and I don't call any out by name, but there's a lot of NFT collections who, if you look behind the hood in a way that most people aren't going to be able to do this, but the data is there. It's the cool thing about blockchain. If you know how to process the data, you know how to batch the data, you can see some sketchy stuff going on, to where it just so happened that maybe one or two people got all the rare ones or most of the rare ones in an NFT collection. Yeah, exactly. That's the one. So with that, it's just like, okay, clearly somebody who was part of the project was doing some malicious stuff. And there's actually a case where one of our community members was able to call out another project. And one of the folks who was part of the project ended up returning, I think, like 20 ETH to the community that he had kind of minted to himself by giving himself the rare NFTs. So it is definitely read that article if you're an NFT collector. I think it's a really, really eye-opening and insightful article. And we were also featured in Forbes because we helped them call out some sketchy activity that was going on. So there is a lot of, it's cool because there's a lot of excitement behind the concept of NFTs and the concept of crypto, but also you need to be aware, because there's a lot of people who are trying to take advantage of the excitement and of the hype that comes with that.
And that's a fact, because anytime, I would say, if I had to put percentages on it, 80% of the hype usually comes in when it's already in the news cycle, things are already at the top. And I was taught that When people are greedy, be fearful, and when people are fearful, be greedy.
Yep. Yep.
So now arguably is one of the best times to get involved, and that's
Yeah.
why I love being active in this space now, when everyone feels like, oh, we've deserted this space, it's too far gone, everything's down. I'm like, no, this is the time to adapt the technology. This is the time to see which projects really survive the crash and their tech is still standing strong and is robust. There's a few projects I'm really fond of right now, but I don't want to get into politics on
Gotcha. Gotcha.
here. But I do like it. I think right now people who are paying attention would be paying attention to developer conventions. So there's a couple that I've been to recently. One was NearCon and one was ETH DevCon. Um, those are really robust communities still, so those are potentially good blockchains to check out in case you're listening. But
Mhm.
if you still see, even in this pullback, where there are developer conventions happening, that's because those ecosystems are still looking for talented individuals to build in their ecosystem. They still want people to create cool apps, cool projects, cool protocols, build in their metaverse, create things, ideate things, make things. So pay attention to those projects that are still able to withstand this storm and
Yeah.
host events.
We
Mhm.
saw it in 2018, 2019. Like, I remember even it was right around the time I came to Stanford, and like the energy in the crypto community was just like at a lull. And like same everything that you're saying, the companies that were sitting there and like actually building, you saw when it came out 2020, 2021, like they hit the ground. They took off in a real way because they had spent the time. And I think there's a benefit of being in a bear market to where the pressure to produce immediately is lessened. And it's crypto's interesting in particular, especially if you have a token in a community, because in most companies, like people just wait for the stock, like the stock market and whatever happens there, and you don't have a direct line to go and yell at the CEO. You can blast him on Twitter, but he's probably not going to read it. And these communities, like people are actively in the communities, they're involved, and so you can talk all you want about the product and like what it's solving, but if the token price is going down, you end up with a lot of headache and a lot of uh, a lot of people who are upset in your community. And so in the bear market, there's less of expectation that we need something ASAP. We need something ASAP, and you can really sit down and like build. And that's one thing that the space probably needs to push back on a little bit is selling into the hype and buying into the hype in a way that we expect everything to just go up. No, it takes time to build stuff and you iterate. Where a lot of us are startups, and so there's a lot of startup principles that work in Web 2 that also work in Web 3 if you take the time to go by them.
That's facts, and that's why I'm even more excited because I'm looking at those projects that are still pushing through in this time, and I'm really excited to see this time 2 years from now what's going to happen, because I really want to see what happens when the market's going to do what it's going to do in
Yeah.
this upcoming recession. No comment. But so moving on to that, what are some skills that you as a VP are really interested in people having now that you think that they could upskill on now, that you think would be valuable in the coming months? And not just in relation to your company, but just in general. Like if there was a young kid sitting at home, or even someone who's more seasoned and looking to switch careers, and they want to enter into that very unique Web 2 transitioning into Web 3 space, and they have no technical background, they have no skills. What are some things you think they could be learning right now to make themselves invaluable to the next 4 to 6 months coming up?
I think the main thing is hunger, and how do you demonstrate that hunger? It's,
Mm.
it's less of a skill, more of like, how are you? So yeah, you know you want to transition in. There's one person who wants to transition in and they're kind of reading some stuff. There's another person who goes, and it happens to me, like people will ping me and be like, hey, I would love to chat and pick your brain. I talked to somebody the other day. I would love to pick your brain. And he sits down, have the conversation, and then he's going to go get active and try to join some communities and demonstrate it. So like the cool thing about the space right now is there's all these DAOs, there's all these communities that you don't have to sit around and wait. Like, just like I said, like there's a guy in our community who he just showed up all the time, joined our chat, contributed when we had bounties. He did the bounties. He just started contributing in a real way. and then we're like, hey, would you want to do some part-time work? He knocked it out the park. And then we gave him a full-time offer without ever seeing this man's face. Of course, we took care of the paperwork and everything, so everything's above board. But it was like a cool experience to where like we trusted him because he showed up, not because of what was on his resume. And the cool thing for a lot of people in the space is like there aren't extensive Web3 resumes for most people. There are some people, but like for most people, you're not going to have an extensive Web3 resume. But what you can do is go get involved in that DAO that you're contributing to, the NFT collection that you and your friends put together, the side projects. That's a big thing. A lot of developers that we're interviewing right now, we're definitely looking for what have you actually built. Yes, we know you might have gone to developer bootcamp, but have you actually built something that would be relevant for us? So that's the main thing, is how do you demonstrate that you're hungry? And I think most teams will look at that. Of course, if you have an incredible background of all this technical expertise and whatever, that's going to get you in the door for sure. But if you're looking to transition, the main thing is like, are you hungry? Like, how do I know for sure you actually want to be in Web3 and want to make a contribution other than just wanting to be in Web3 for the sake of wanting to be in Web3?
I think that's golden. And as I have these interviews and ask those questions, especially most of the conversations I have now are with founders. So those are people who literally have wonderful ideas and they're building companies and they're entering into the tech space or tech adjacent space. And then also really learning the nomenclature of this space, because what people might not realize is that they're already doing a lot of these things. There's just new words associated with it. So even myself, I've had Digital Green Book for 4 years, but only within the last 4 months have I started calling myself a founder, because that's the nomenclature used in this ecosystem.
You are.
Hey. And for people who still feel like that might be a bit wordy for them, I'll say look out for hackathons. I know in March myself, I'll be hosting a hackathon in Miami with some dope people. So if you're looking to learn how to break into tech or looking to get those jitters out of the way, look around for hackathons. There's lots of ways that you can contribute, even if you don't have technical skills, like zero technical skills. There's roles on a hacker team that would allow you to participate. That would be the researcher, the individual who's looking up information to make that project go off seamlessly, and other
You'll
things.
learn so much in that process too. You'll from talking to the people, ideating, seeing what went wrong, what didn't go wrong. You'll learn so much in that process. So that's a gem. I think that's a great idea. Great advice.
That part. Thank you. I like to think I have good ideas. But there's still so much to learn. So I love having these types of conversations. And I think you're a wealth of knowledge. What events are you going to coming up? Or is there anything on your docket that you're attending in real life?
Just came back from DEF CON Bogota. Was an absolutely incredible experience.
Yes.
Great event. Love Colombia. It was a great time. Great question. Probably will hit like NFT LA for sure next year. But I think the year is wrapping up, so nothing immediately that's coming up. But I'm always open and ears open, so if stuff pops up, especially in the Bay Area. I definitely try to step in.
Bay Area.
Yeah.
For myself, I will be going to Blackest Tech on Thursday and Friday. That's in Orlando.
Awesome.
Dope, amazing lineup coming up. I think the week after that, I'll be in LA for LA Blockchain Summit. I'm really interested to see what's going down this year. The week after that, I believe, is Afrotech. So I'll be in Austin, Texas for Afrotech.
You kind of give me FOMO right now. I might have to look into what tickets are looking like.
No FOMO. There's always an event, so don't feel pressure.
Yeah.
Don't feel pressure. And then I think I'm rounding out my year. Well, in the middle of Afrotech, I have to fly back home because that's I'm doing a presentation for an accelerator that I'm in. So I'm like, I need to be there for that. So midweek, I'm randomly going back to Florida. And then I'll be doing Tech Beach, Jamaica in December.
Oh, wow. Okay, I might really need to look for these tickets.
I'm so excited for Tech Beach, Jamaica. Like, that'll be my first international, like, Caribbean tech conference. Like, that's gonna be fun. I'll pull that one up for you because, like, I'm just excited about it. That URL is techbeach.net. So that's December 8th through 10th.
Okay. Let me see
That's
if I
gonna
can
be
go
lit.
convince the CEO if that makes sense.
It's a necessary expense. What you talking about? It's
You're right. You're right.
necessary.
You're right. I just got to practice my pitch for
But that's gonna be dope. And I think that's what I'm rounding my year out with. I think that's my last thing for this year. The funny thing was I embarked on this journey a few years ago. But this year I've probably done the most conferences I've done in my life, and it's allowed me to meet wonderful individuals like yourself. And I feel like being in person is the most rapid way that you can really break into this space. Networking was never really my strong suit before. Um, but it's a skill that you're going to develop as you enter into the tech space. So that'd be another gem that I can give to people.
plus
Um,
one to that. That's probably actually that's another to your earlier question. That's another one, like learner network. There's just so many awesome people, and especially like if everybody's learning, they're going to be open to having conversations, and yeah, you just learn so much through that.
yep. And I'm pretty accessible. Most people reach out and I chat with them. Um, there Miami is a wealth of events to attend. There's probably an event every single week. So if you just show up to Miami, you can find a tech event. The
Yeah.
same with Atlanta, the same with Tulsa, Oklahoma, the same with Cincinnati, Ohio, and I recently was in Vallejo. I did a Web3 panel there.
Oh, interesting in Vallejo.
Yes. Shout out to Oakland.
Yeah, shout
Uh
out.
but I want to make a repository, some another conversation I had earlier today. So as you're on your journey, if you can keep it in the back of your mind, start aggregating the historical things that you're doing because we're living Black history.
Wow, that's a powerful statement. Wow.
You're literally building out Web3 in real time. Like 100 years from now, who did it? You did it.
Damn, that's a powerful statement. Wow. Was
So
your
I
earlier
want
conversation with Brandon Middleton?
so I just interviewed Brandon, but no, I had another conversation with a young lady, Marsha, who's in the UK.
Gotcha.
Black woman, owns a tech company. And we're just talking about it's so interesting how we have such shared experiences, even though we live on two
Yeah,
completely different continents.
gotcha.
Um,
Fun fact:
and I'm,
Brandon was my teacher for last year at Stanford.
how dope is that? Yo,
Yeah,
shout out to the connections.
yeah, 100%.
I think that's so amazing. Like the work you're doing now, especially with how necessary it is, you need to memorialize that. So as many pictures as you can, take those. That's why I post so much on LinkedIn because I'm like every single thing I go to, I need to post a picture not for myself, but to remind other people. That's even sort of how we're sitting here. Like every dope person I meet, I want to be able to look back on a conversation. Like, you know how your Facebook memories hit you sometime? You're
Yeah.
like, dang, oh, like
I'm
how
so
dope.
bad with that. So I needed to hear this because you're right. I'm gonna look back in 20 years, like remember the days where X, Y, Z, and yeah, that's good. I appreciate
Boom.
that.
Especially because you're working with the blockchain. Like you can
Yeah.
memorialize yourself in the blockchain. So let that be another side hustle. Hmm.
Huh.
Period, Kendra. She said, I
Okay.
like that. But definitely, thank you so much for being here, CK. Even the fact that you're looking to employ people inside of this space is a beautiful place to be. Like, that's amazing. Like, you can change three people's lives and allow them to pursue their passions. I think that's invaluable. Um, so, before you go, what would you say is something that you haven't done yet that you want to still do?
In general or in the Web3 space?
Take it as you will, either or both.
Whoo-wee.
Existential questions.
I mean, these days, so I'm working remotely. It's nice to be in the Bay, but I might try to, do the little nomad thing for a little while. Get out to see some other places, see some other parts of the world, parts of the country and parts of the world, while still working. And that's the kind of one of the beautiful parts about Web3. Again, we have people in like the UK, we have people in Belgium. So like you can really be anywhere as long as you're willing to like make it work. And like, of course, meetings get a little more challenging, but that's an exciting thing for me to be able to do that, where honestly I know a lot of people don't have the opportunities to do that, so it's a blessing to be in these kind of roles. So definitely want to take advantage of that while I'm still young.
Please do, and document the process. That's like
I
you
got
were
you. I
doing
got you.
an expat nomad. Like so many people look up to that sort of lifestyle, you know. So, but thank you, CK, for being here. The replay will be available on LinkedIn, YouTube, and in a few days on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Definitely tell a friend. I'm literally trying to upskill as many people into this field as possible. This is where Web3 and Web2 intersect. Y'all know I got a little trading passion on the side. So definitely stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in to Digital Green Book.
Thank you so much for having me.